Welcome, Greater Heartland and KW family. This is Clark Kendall, your regional technology trainer, and welcome back to Ignite. We are here for session 7, capturing more leads with open houses. One of my favorite topics, and I'm overjoyed to have Chris Lindquist here with us. Chris, welcome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being here.
Awesome. Yeah, Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first thing you need to know is I got licensed in 2002. The Friday before Memorial Day, and that Sunday I was in an open house.
No kidding.
No kidding. And so this is a topic that I'm passionate about, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. Today, I've been in the real estate market for 20 years. I've been an ALC member. I've been a team leader. Now I'm currently a KW Maps coach, and I also have a property management company, a 7th level property management company that all I did was use the Millionaire Real Estate Agent and just change some of the names and just did what it said to do. And we have just over 800 management contracts here in Kansas City.
That is awesome. I did not know that. That is amazing.
It's it pays for a few toys.
That's awesome. All right. Yeah. So we are definitely here for session 7, capture leads with your open house. And so just to preface for, Chris provides some amazing expertise into this content. And also as it's been delivered through KWU, which we're so thankful for, you're joining us in maybe one of a few ways. One, you're in your market center right now, watching live with your peers, with your leadership group as a facilitator. And so welcome and trust that you'll lean into this time, this conversation, as open house is an amazing way, absolutely, to begin your business. And you also might be watching live with us just on your own, right? Whether you're out of town or at home. And so welcome, encourage you to participate in the comments section, either on Facebook Live or YouTube Live. You might be watching this at a later point, right? You came across, you search for Ignite, and here we are. So yes, welcome at this time. And again, if you have any questions while you go through that, engage in the comments box. Don't leave any question or wondering just out there, just in your own head, right? So again, welcome, and really just excited to get this going. So we're ready, Chris?
I'm ready. So lead me.
All right, awesome. Yeah. So here's our course overview. One thing I will share here, and Chris, and I'll hand it over to you. We have had the daily success systems, right? So just a little checkpoint before we go through this course overview. Yes, we're in the lead generation mode here. Lead generation, the topic, and of course, session 7 of this course. And yet there's so much goes beyond this content, right? That hopefully you're leaning into. The daily success system, 10 conversations, 10 contacts added to the database, 10 handwritten notes, and the daily social media 10-5-1. So how are you doing with that? Have you committed to it? Has anything possibly gotten in the way since last session? If you're not aware of what that is, if you're just joining us happened randomly, then I'll talk more about that towards the end, and yet also ask your market center leadership of what that is. So last piece here, have you checked with your accountability partner? Accountability with your accountability partner, maybe send a text to check in there. Okay, Chris, just want to get that, make sure we lean into that for our participants.
Yeah, absolutely. And celebrate the progress you're making. Man, I wish I could tell people I was perfect at this thing from the beginning, but just keep moving forward.
All right, so we have our agenda here today. I guess we'll be covering open houses, and so what by today's in session, there's the 3 main topics or components that you'll learn about. Okay, one is, of course, describing the benefits of holding an open house. Secondly, is identifying the best practices of best practices for holding an open house and being prepared to hold an open house. There's a bit of prep work, things you want to consider before that. So others have done this really well, and we've got to learn from that. And so we're going to present that today. All right. So one other piece here that I'll share is thinking about what you want to learn today. Right? Maybe this is the first time you've ever heard about open houses as a lead source, or maybe it's the first time that you've really got an opportunity to learn best practices. So take a moment and think, okay, what would I hope to learn about open houses? What would I like to leave with? Not only just in content and new knowledge, but also in action steps. Okay, so just take a minute to do that. But then, Chris, I'm going to go ahead and hand this over for our first as we got and get a lot of good quotes from Gary Keller.
So I love it when they find one quote from Gary Keller out of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, because there's actually about 1 billion of them that are worth, especially when it comes to lead generation. But this one says nothing else about your business will have as big an impact on it as the number of leads you have. So, as we begin to talk about open houses, what is it this quote indicates to you? And I think the first thing that it indicates is your job as a real estate agent and your job at open house is to generate leads. Okay. It's one way to impact the number of leads that you're going to have. And what is the purpose of holding a house beyond that? Well, we could sell the house. We could sell that house, and we're going to want to be careful of agency and all those other things. Check with your state and local laws, check with your broker. Be careful not to cross agency. But if we don't sell that house, we want to sell a house. We want to find the right buyers. We want to find the right sellers, and you can meet both of them. That's the thing. You're going to capture those leads. So that's the first thing I would tell you about an open house. If you don't have a huge database, this is a great way to build your database, Clark.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
Yeah. So I mentioned at the beginning of this that very first weekend I was a real estate agent, I was in an open house. And here's what's interesting. I got licensed the Friday before Memorial Day. And by December 31st, I had sold 23 and a half sides. 16 of those sides came directly or indirectly from open houses.
Wow.
If it was a Saturday or a Sunday, I can't tell you how many Kansas City Chiefs games I missed. I mean, one of the biggest plays that ever happened in 2000 and the fall of 2002 happened right as a couple came through the door. So I had to hear about the play later that reversed the, and we ended up winning in the last minute against the Cleveland Browns. I didn't even know it happened. But that couple, that was down in Tulsa where I got started. That couple bought a home from me, sold a home from me, bought a home from me. And even though I've moved to Kansas City, has been responsible for 2 referrals since I've left.
Wow, there you go.
18 years ago. So open houses can be fun. They're a low cost way to find buyers. It's not, your goals there are just to generate some business and get your feet wet as a real estate agent. We're talking about open houses, Dave. It's important to know this. Before engaging in in-person activities, consult your jurisdiction. I already said that. I'm going to say it again, because in some states, you may not be able to just go in and immediately create the lead. You need to find out whether or not they're interested in that house before you go and create the leads. But creating the leads is what's going to happen most of the time, because what are the chances of somebody coming in and saying, I'll take this house?
Very few.
Well, in this crazy market we've had for the last 3 or 4 years, maybe it's higher than it was, because I'm a little bit of the old man talking about when Snickers was 50 cents. But the truth is Snickers was 50 cents. But all the things in the real estate, they've happened, they'll come back again. So that's what I would say to you about just make sure you're on the right side of your law, but you can really generate a lot of leads, Clark, at open houses.
That's awesome. Love it.
So what limiting beliefs might you have about open houses? I mean, it might be time to start thinking about your mindset around there. And, I think in day one, you were talking about the 6 personal perspectives, specifically removing your limiting beliefs. However, you might have some limiting beliefs about open houses. Okay. So let's talk about those and see what's going on. Some of the limiting beliefs that I hear the most often is, well, I don't have a listing to hold open. I mean, I hear that all the time. I hear that from people on my team. Yeah. And so, that'll work. If you stick to that excuse, I promise you it'll work. However, if you look for solutions, you'll find solutions. You could ask other agents in your market center. You could ask permission to hold one of their houses open. In some areas, including mine, we've held open other companies' houses. I mean, is that allowed in your area? Does your broker, even if it's allowed, does your broker allow it? Does their broker allow it? And I can trace back 3 or 4 sales immediately from somebody that was in my office. So there's one thing that you can think about as far as creating more open houses to do. One of the things I hear, and this is one of my favorite, Clark, is I don't have a sign.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I don't have any signs yet. I promise you, your market center has some signs.
Yep.
I promise you that one of your friends in the real estate business has some signs that you could borrow. I would also ask you this: how many businesses in America can you earn a 6-figure income from and a $2,000 investment? And most of you didn't quite spend $2,000 to go to the classes, to get your license, to get your background check, to get your fingerprints. Could you invest $150 in signs? I mean, is this a business or a hobby? If it's a hobby, go borrow them. If you're really strapped for cash, like I was, go borrow them. Otherwise, invest in yourself. Okay, that's what I would say about the signs. That's an easy one.
Absolutely.
I've also heard, well, I may not know all the answers, or I really want to know what I'm doing before I do an open house. Clark, that's a pretty admirable quality. Would you agree?
Yeah. You want to be competent, and you want to have feelings of confidence in that, for sure.
Yeah. Well, here's one way to get competent. Read the contract. How much interaction does that take? So you'll know what the rules are and how to guide somebody through just by understanding your contract. It's amazing how many people don't learn that basic. But the other thing you can do is really study the market around your area. And understand how many houses have been for sale, how many have sold, those kinds of things. And by the way, is there anything wrong with just saying, I don't know? I think more trust is built between a potential client and a real estate agent when the agent says, I don't know. That entire first year, my standard response to everything I don't know, because I didn't have time to learn this all, I had to go make some money.
Sure.
I mean, I went cold turkey. And so one of my favorite lines was, listen, I promise you this, I don't know the answer to that, but by the end of the day, I'm going to get a hold of my broker who supervises everything I do, and I'm going to get you the answer to that. Can I have your telephone number and I'll get back to you today?
There you go. Captured lead.
Captured lead. It's a great way to get their contact information. And by the way, have you ever had somebody tell you, I don't know, but I'll get back to you? What's the harm? I don't know the harm of that. Just embrace the fact that you're new. My first broker told me, never tell people you're new. And I looked at him and said, I tell everybody I'm new, man. I put the responsibility on you. And he laughed a little bit, But so it's different people have different ways of doing this. I'm not saying I'm all right or you're all wrong. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just simply saying, figure out a way to get the answers and get them back to them. Don't make them up. I've also heard open houses don't work, that like 1/2 of 1% or maybe upwards of 1% of open houses actually sell that day. Well, if that's your mindset going in, what are your expectations, that are coming true? And today the market has changed. Can we agree with that? Like
fast.
Yeah. If you can get an open house today, and you can, I've actually seen situations where 40 people come through. And that's too many, because now you can't build any relationships.
It's tough. Yep.
Okay. So how can we think about that differently? Well, we're going to cover that a little bit later in today's session, about maybe having some other folks there. So the goal is to leave with some leads, not to leave with 40 names that you don't have any relationship with whatsoever. You can just get into a phone book for that.
Love that.
Oh, by the way, for my under 30s, a phone book is this thing that used to be delivered to your house. It's about this big, but we've got other ways now. All right. And the other one is, I won't be safe. That's a real situation that happens around the country every once in a while, which is why it's good to buddy up or have really good safety practices. But there's nothing wrong with buddying up. Again, especially in today's market with so many people coming through. I mean, Clark, do you have any comments you would add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Even the first one, I don't have a listing to open. It's that I think that's oftentimes the biggest obstacle, right? And yet you might have already seen in your own market center that culture of, hey, who has an open house that I can hold, right? Or who's available to hold an open house? Get that dialogue going, and the more questions you ask around that, you'll find opportunities. And one thing that I used to do when some listings were scarce. We're, of course, in the St. Louis area here, so we have 4 market centers at the time. And so I would go into MLS and see what was either coming soon or it was just active. That would be earlier in the week. I'd call those Keller Williams agents up and say, hey, you have an open house? Because that's the one I would want, right? Ideally, if I could choose an open house to host, it would be a brand new listing that nobody has seen before. So I would go lead generate, just prep to go lead generate in open houses. I would call KB agents, and it worked. I remember one distinctly in South City, St. Louis. I made the call to the agent. They're like, "Oh wow, you're lead genning to agents to get this." Like, yeah, I love open houses. That's what I want to do. And sure enough, definitely got a buyer out of that. Some of my favorite clients, ongoing life clients, still to today.
There you go. Yep. Hey, you could sign a 1-day exclusive right to sell with a for sale by owner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And hold theirs open. And does anybody really do that? Yes. Yes, I've had agents do that. And yes, they've gotten leads, and yes, they've gotten closings from it.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't know if, it's harder to find those for sale by owners, but can I share a secret with all you guys?
Yeah.
You're now salespeople. Your job is to generate leads. Your job is to get used to hearing no. Your job is to figure out possibilities. Just a tip, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
So should every house you have be held open? Okay. Under what circumstances would you not recommend holding an open house?
Yeah.
So think about some of those. The first one would be the sellers don't want an open house.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find this in some of your wealthier sellers, because maybe they have too many things around the house that they don't want to put up or whatever. You could choose not to hold open an open house that won't help your reputation. Like maybe you're selling a favor for a friend or something like that, and it's not in your general area, and they don't want to really listen to you because they know you too well, and they've got deer heads all over the walls, and they don't want to declutter. Okay, I got nothing against any of that. However, it may not be the house that you want to hold open. Okay, because it doesn't fit the brand you're building. When it's not necessary to show. So for example, in today's seller's market, when there's immediate multiple offers on a house, maybe you don't want to hold an open house. But then again, let's go back to that friend. Maybe it's a friend or a relative or a really good client who knows darn good and well that we don't need the open house to sell the home, but they're willing to grant you a favor to hold the house open. I know that's not under the don't hold a house open. Just another thought, though.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, of course, we've had a lot of health and safety protocols recently, haven't we, Clark?
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those are some other reasons why you may choose not to hold a house open.
Yeah, Chris, that does bring up one point there about, not necessarily, it's not necessary to show the home if it's a fast-paced market. The MREA speaks to this about it being a seller's market and having your plan in place when listings go fast, right? And probably at that point that MREA was written, we haven't seen a market like one that we're in today. Right, that are gone in 24 hours, 48 hours, even before they're on the market. So that preparedness is even more important, right? And I see possibly, yes, that is considered. It might not be necessary to show, and yet where's the opportunity here? Listing agents know how fast it's going to go. You could possibly be leveraged to them. They might have promised the seller, "Hey, I'll hold your house open," and they might be so busy receiving 20 offers that they're stressed to actually make good on that promise for open houses. You could be their help in that, their leverage in delivering for that seller and making it a win-win.
Yeah. And by the way, you just said one of my favorite Y4C2 TZSs, the whole win-win. I mean, this business can be a lot of fun. And it can, you can do a lot of good in people's lives. I mean, think about this for a second. You took on the responsibility when you got your real estate license to help people find the place where they're going to grow, and live. And if they have a family, share that time with their family.
Yeah.
Where they're going to laugh, they're going to cry, they're going to make love, they're going to fight. I mean, this is the place they come home to at the end of the day for sanctuary.
Yeah.
So, I mean, have fun with this business and be creative around these open houses and do what's best for your client.
Yeah.
It's really that simple.
Yeah, love that.
All right. So, who benefits from the open houses? Think this through for a second. Who really benefits? Your sellers, obviously. Your buyers, because they get a kind of a free, no pressure look at the house and may have been spontaneous as they were driving by. The neighbors, don't overlook the neighbors, by the way.
Yeah.
That first open house I did, I told you, woo, look at me. I was at an open house 3 days into my license, right? And I said that proudly. Do you know how many guests I had that day, Clark?
I have no clue.
It was Memorial Day weekend. I'm in this house schwitzing because there's no AC on, in a suit and a tie, because it's 2002, and I think that's what I've got to do as a real estate agent.
Uh-huh.
And the only person I had come through, one person, was the neighbor who had been mowing his lawn and wanted some water and just to take a look at the house and see what condition it was in. Now, I wish I could sit here and tell you that I developed a relationship with that neighbor and he bought and sold for me. He never did.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. But that neighbor was there and he saw the place and he saw what's going on. You never know the next person that's going to help you. So pay attention to the neighbors. And by the way, some of the neighbors will come out to see if you're a selling agent for them. So they get a benefit too by checking you out for free.
Yeah.
And then you're the agent. Yeah.
I was just going to add there, Chris, that you're not to create an additional stress or anxiety around this, right? Yet as a salesperson, as a professional, you're always on audition.
Oh yeah.
Right? You always are. whether there's door knock around open houses, any visitor that could walk in, right? That could be your next listing, your next buyer. Get excited about that, right? Because you are the one that is going to best serve them.
Some of you will embrace this, and some of you will go, okay, whatever you want to do. I used to take every spare dime I had and put it into real estate magazines. Again, I told you Snickers bars were 50 cents, but I put them in real estate magazines, and then I became a blogger. And my blog made me a whole lot of money and still generates 6 figures of income. And I hardly ever write on it anymore.
That's awesome.
That's, by the way, a tip. But here's the deal. Not once, not twice, hundreds of times over my career, I've been standing in line at the grocery store or getting gas, and somebody looks at me and they go, are you that real estate guy? So if I'm berating somebody behind a counter, keep in mind that person behind you, watching you, might have been, and I use past tense, your next client. So just treat people right. You're supposed to do that anyway. Anyway. So as we talk about who it benefits, the sellers, the buyers, the neighbors, yourself, always know that you're always marketing, like Clark said. You're always marketing as Clark. Again, you're salespeople now. Embrace that. Be a great salesperson. Don't be Herb Tarlick from WKRP in Cincinnati. Again, if you're 30 and under, go to YouTube and look that up. You'll get what I'm talking about. All right. Let's talk about some of the benefits of the open house. Would that be okay, Clark?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. It's inexpensive, which is, by the way, one of my favorite parts of it, because when I got started, I had no money. And I can tell story after story over that. But it's really inexpensive. You buy a few waters. Maybe you have, in my case, I had my wife make brownies because I'd set the kitchen on fire. Okay. So she would make the brownies and I would put them out there. Again, pre-COVID, Snickers were 50 cents. I mean, that's just kind of how we used to do it. And then you get a few signs, and then I'm gonna send you to some place to read as extra credit for those of you that really want to make a lot of money and really learn this subject well. In the Shift book, starting on page 70, there is starting on page 70, but on page 71, there's a pyramid of open house activities. Now, keep in mind, I got started in 2002. Shift didn't come out till what was it, Clark, 11 or 12 or something like that? I don't remember exactly. I never once did an open house past the third level.
Hmm.
And I had all of that success. Imagine if I'd actually known what I was doing and followed the shift book. So by the time this is over, if this is something you say, you know what, I'm going to make this work. I didn't say I'm going to see if this works. I said I'm going to make this work.
Yeah.
Go deeper into the shift book on it.
Yeah.
So again, you can meet clients at the open houses. It's a prospecting tool.
Mm-hmm.
And you can qualify pretty quickly there. I mean, when you're face to face, belly to belly, as Tom Hopkins used to say, when you're belly to belly, you can tell a lot about you and they can tell a lot about, you can tell a lot about them and they can tell a lot about you.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a fantastic way to go.
Yeah.
And if you talk about an ROI, a return on your investment,
Mm-hmm.
if you're spending $8.37 on water and maybe a pen and a piece of paper or something along those lines, and you get a $9,000 or $12,000 commission, I don't think you have to be really good at algebra to figure that out.
No.
That's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
So I kind of already talked about qualified leads. I mean, again, it's just a great place for you to meet people and see if they like you and you like them. And is it okay, Clark, to ask, is it really necessary for everybody in the world to like you?
I think so. It's a great question.
One of my analogies to when you're prospecting and you're meeting people in real time, and some of them you're going to bond with and some of them you aren't. I think we intrinsically know that, but rejection still hurts.
Yep.
Let's be real. Rejection still hurts.
Yep.
And here's just a thought process I learned years and years ago. And I said, yeah. And that was this. When you go out to your favorite breakfast location and you get the bacon and the eggs and the toast and the hash browns, that big breakfast,
Mm-hmm.
you get your warm coffee there. And just as the waitress delivers it or the waiter delivers it, and they ask you, would you like any ketchup for your hash browns? If you respond yes, what do, Clark?
Well, I assume they go grab you some ketchup.
They go grab you some ketchup. If you respond no, what do?
That's okay. All right, great.
That's okay. They don't go back into the kitchen and have a complete nervous breakdown that the guy at table 17 just rejected them on the ketchup.
Yeah.
It could be that the guy at table 17 doesn't like ketchup or just doesn't need ketchup at that time. But it's not this emotional transfer.
Yeah.
It could be that person at the open house knows they can't qualify.
Mm-hmm.
They're just dreaming of the day they can. But they're not going to tell you that because that would be embarrassing. So they tell you, no, thank you.
Yeah.
It's just a mindset shift.
Yeah. I remember that. I love that. That's great.
Somebody said something like that from stage years and years ago, and I really attached to it.
Yeah.
Because I'm a high D personality and I'm also a high C personality. So I'm the kind of guy you have to tell that you're, hey, by the way, I'm trying to make you mad. Okay. Because otherwise I just take it as information. And yet my wife is the other way. And so we would talk about this in deep talks. And so anyway, it's a way to think about why people might be saying no to you. It might have nothing to do with you. Yeah. So, all right. I'd love to hear some of your ahas, but I can't right now. Here's what you should do. You should either write them in the comment section or, just as importantly, write them in your own personal notebook. Mm-hmm. Because you can go back and review these ahas later. Like if you ever find yourself getting lost, like what's wrong with me? I'm in a funk. I was doing this. Go back to your ahas from when things were going right. All right. So let's put down some ahas and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Awesome. Actually, Chris, I'll tell you what, we'll allow them some time. We'll take 3 minutes here. And if you need to grab a water, visit the restroom facilities or anything, we'll come back and jump right into. So write down your ahas and we'll be right back in 3 minutes. All right, welcome back. Trust you got some good ahas there, and hopefully you didn't keep them to yourself either. And yet we're going to move on in our agenda here. We're going to go next through best practices. Yeah, we did uncover, right, why these open houses are so beneficial. And now let's go into these best practices. We're going to solidify your effort here, Chris. How's that sound?
Let's do it.
All right.
All right. So remember your 6 personal perspectives. You should master those, by the way, but that's a whole other subject. Remember your 6 personal perspectives, going from E to P. With everything we do, it's essential to be purposeful in our mindset and our actions. And before your open house, set concrete and achievable goals. For example, tell yourself your goal is to add 6 people to your database. Don't get hung up on the 6. Maybe for you it's 2. Maybe for somebody else it's 10. Just don't. But it is important to set the goals that are achievable and will require a lot of work. Setting attainable and difficult goals will help maximize the participants' return on the investment, your investment.
Yeah.
Because what are you really investing here? Again, if you can do it on the inexpensive route, what are you really investing, Clark?
Yeah. Well, I always call that working to learn.
Yeah. Well, you're investing your time.
Yeah.
You know, I can't tell you how many mistakes I made that first time, missing Chiefs games. You know, I could have been watching Chiefs games. I could have been out at the park with my son and my wife.
Yeah.
So set the goals and make it worth your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. What other goals could be useful for you to set? Think back to earlier when we said that goals are not just to get appointments. Open houses are a great way to generate leads. So think about some goals you could set for your next open house. We can start right now. And your first goal to set is when you're going to have your first open house.
Yeah, absolutely. Great first step.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to talk about picking the house. Okay. It's a crucial step in the open house process. It's important to look for a great and visible location, preferably not more than 3 turns from a major road. And if you're worried about cost, more than 3 turns is more signs. It's more time getting out of your car and putting up all these other things. Okay. And I'm going to go deeper into picking the right house here. You should pick a house that fits where you're going to make your money. Now, I'll be honest with you. My first year, where I was going to make my money was anywhere and everywhere.
Amen.
I mean, you could have mules out front. I'm your man.
Yep.
All right. But as you begin to figure out who you're going to be as a real estate agent, figure out what houses you should pass on and which houses you want to go. Okay.
Yeah.
You also need to get really familiar with the neighborhood. Really familiar with the neighborhood. You should be driving that neighborhood, looking at that neighborhood. How about running off all the solds for the last year? And instead of having some vague idea that you saw on a computer, actually driving, sitting in front of it, looking at it and going, okay, just get a little bit of curb appeal going.
Yeah.
Okay. Know the different kinds of floor plans that might be in there just by what you can see. And as you prepare for your open house, you should get to know the shopping centers and the grocery stores. How many grocery stores are, in my former location, I could drive 1.5 miles in any direction and be at 6 grocery stores. Do you think that was a selling point for my wife? Yeah, she loved that. What's the architecture? Where are the coffee shops? Some of you have a real coffee problem. And so might your clients. They're going to want to know where the coffee shops is. And it may not be brand X. They need to know where brand Y is. Okay. Remember, when you're choosing your house, you don't always have to pick the most expensive house or the least expensive house. Consider what the average prices are in the market and adjust for that as you go along.
Yeah.
If the goal of an open house is to generate and qualify leads, what other things should we think about before we pick a home for an open house, Clark?
Oh, yeah. That's great. Generate qualified leads. We should think about what else would be considering there. Yeah, I mean, for me, I kind of already touched on it. Maybe possibly how long it's been on the market. how many open houses it's already had. Hey, that's why I always wanted to shoot for new listings if at all possible, and went after those. Because if it's been held open 2 or 3 times and those neighbors, because I was wanting to be listings focused and I wanted to tap into those neighbors too, then I might pass on it.
I think that's great. Yeah. What's the reputation of that neighborhood that it's in?
Yeah.
Is it going to attract the kind of buyers that you want to work with, or the kind of sellers that you want to work with?
Yeah.
Now, understand what I'm saying here. Fair housing compliance is a passion of mine.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe I don't want to specialize in duplexes.
Yep.
Maybe I don't want to specialize in homes in Missouri. Missouri is 9 miles that way. Okay. If I'm going to do an open house, I want to do it closer to my house.
Yeah.
And Clark knows a little bit about the Kansas-Missouri rivalries.
Right. Yeah. Well, and Chris, that's a good point too. And again, talking about that 7-level open house, it does talk about one of those tactics, the strategies to get leads would be door knocking. And it might just be, I mean, not that you always have to like the clients you're working with and they like you, right? You already spoke of that. And yet, oftentimes you don't want to work with somebody that might be unworkable, or maybe it just doesn't seem to be someone likable on the front end, right? So there was neighborhoods that I thought that I'd really would like to be able to have more listings and have some market share based on price point. It was a higher price point, and yet as I was door knocking, what a friendly area. So it begs the question, like, man, maybe this isn't my beginning spot, for a place to gain some production. So,
well,
yeah,
you're talking about a friendly area. How about an area you just don't fit in? Like, can I give you a real life example?
Yeah, absolutely.
When I first got started, I lived paycheck to paycheck. I was a 37-year-old man when I got started in real estate. I want you to think about this. Today is my 36th wedding anniversary. So I got married at 21. I was a college dropout, and my wife is a college dropout. And we have been tight and thick as thieves for our whole lives. Okay. But we were always broke. And I mean capital B. Like, I knew people had money, but I didn't understand how much money.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I mean, thank you, Keller Williams and Quantum Leap and Bold and the 6 personal perspectives and all that Gary has created and poured into the millionaire real estate agent changed my life. Changed my life because a Keller Williams agent said, "Hey, have you seen this new book by Gary?" Again, Snickers was $0.25 or 50 cents. So when this came out, and people say, "Well, I'm waiting for the new 2.0 version." Quit waiting. This works. Okay. And so for me, every time I got around somebody that had real money, I didn't know how to act. I didn't know how to say. And do you think they could tell? They could tell. And if it wasn't for one customer taking me under his wing and showing me investment properties and how to do the math on investment properties and challenging me and correcting me bluntly on what I was doing right and what I was doing wrong, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah.
And so today I can go into any neighborhood, anywhere, any economic level, and have great conversations. But I couldn't back then. And it was a journey to get where I am today.
Right. Yeah.
I don't remember where we are on the slides, but there's $1 million worth of advice in there.
No, Chris, I love that. I mean, it is a journey, and we spoke about that some previous pieces here. And so when Wes Litton was talking about generating leads, or just generally talking about lead generation, and reference Gary and how Gary had to learn himself on what it meant to lead generate, developing that mastery. We all begin in the same spot. Right. So don't get discouraged of years of toil and successes and celebrations and failures, because you don't get to see that when you see an agent in your market center that, just, has 20 closing, or Chris, right? I mean, hearing about what Chris did, what you did in your first year, don't let it be a discouragement. You're at the same exact spot that everybody else has started.
Oh, it was pathetic. So to drive home my financial situation, because some of you out there are you're literally sitting on here going, is this real? Can I really do this? Can my life really change? Well, people see me today and they see what I have today and they see who I am today and they think that this is who I was. And one of the reasons today is my 36th wedding anniversary is because I had a spouse who was a rock star. Because Clark, when I first got started, I didn't know how to go up and just talk to people. So I figured out that I could mail enough things to enough people that somebody would finally respond, or I could do open houses. I wasn't the guy that was going to go out door knocking, but I'd drop a real estate magazine with my card attached to it on your door and then run to the next house before you could get there. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
Okay. But we would sit there. I remember one time specifically, this is how broke I was. One time specifically, we were having macaroni and cheese for the third night in a row. And on this particular night, we had hamburger in the macaroni and cheese. So that was like a big deal. And if you think I'm kidding, I'm not kidding. In the middle of the table sat 208 postcards, because that's the area I farmed, was the neighborhood I lived in, and 208 stamps. That was roughly around $200 worth of marketing going out while we're eating macaroni and cheese for the third night. And my wife never said a word. And then we would clean up the kitchen, and then her, me, and at the time, my 8-year-old son would go in, turn on the TV, sit in front of the coffee table, and I would write a little note. Marie would put the address labels on them, and Jake would put the stamps on them.
That's awesome.
And so if you're wondering, can I do this? You can, but it's going to require sacrifice. Yep. Again, this is you got that for free. Okay, so make a cash donation to your favorite charity if you feel like you must do something. Okay? All right. So before you host your first open house, prepare a list of questions you might be asked and practice your conversation starters. Some questions you might face will test your knowledge of the house and your market. It's okay to say, I don't know. Let me get back to you. Can I have your phone number?
Yeah.
Can I have your email? Yeah. Potential clients might ask why the house is for sale. Be careful of your agency. Okay. When the home was last renovated, if the home has any structural issues, how long the house has been on the market. Okay. What other questions might visitors have to an open house? Take a second and think that through and write those down. What's the weirdest question you ever got, Clark?
Oh, well, funny enough about amenities, I had some sellers that wanted to know where the local, how do I best describe it? It's like a gaming center, like a board games, like adult board games for, I don't know. I don't even know any of them, but it's like the little shops that have board games for, I don't even know the names of them, but that was their community. They were new in town. They were looking for something, a community, and wanting to know what that closest board game shop was at, like how close proximity is one there. I had no clue, because even to this day, like they had told me things like I got to work with them when we found them a house, and it was literally less than a mile from the board game shop. And so I learned some things there, but I didn't know. I had no clue. It wasn't nowhere in my world. That was probably the strangest that sticks out in my life.
Well, that's because you didn't do the advice earlier in Ignite about knowing the shopping centers.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
We've all done stuff like that, right? I mean, come on, let's be real. Let's be real. If you need to know where the closest Mexican restaurant or a bar is, I can tell you exactly. It just depends. So listen, create your own questions, figure out your own answers, and your conversation starters. Some of you might be like, I don't even like this bald guy from Kansas. But some of you might understand, like, I was really good at conversation starters. And sometimes they were confrontational conversation starters, which challenges people's perception. Because when they come into that house, what's the last thing they want to do?
I assume felt like they're being sold or asked a bunch of questions, interrogated, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know a lot of people that go to open houses that wake up that morning and say, you know what I want to do? I want to go meet 3 realtors and give them all my contact information. Yeah. I mean, come on. And then we're surprised that it's a little bit difficult. Yeah. So like, Here in my area, I'm a huge Kansas Jayhawk. Kansas Jayhawks are the basketball team that hangs banners. All right, that's just a little shameless plug that I just had to work in here at some point or another. National Championship, 2022 National Championship, Kansas Jayhawks. So when somebody, and college teams are a big deal in Kansas City. I don't know if there's a big deal in St. Louis, Clark, but they're a big deal in Kansas City.
Yeah.
And I have clients from the West Coast. At one point, 90% of my clients lived between San Diego and Vancouver because of the way I did business and investors and all this kind of stuff. And they would ride around Kansas City and they'd be like, what is the deal with all the college things here? I just said, it's just the way it is. And so there was a good chance when I had an open house, somebody was walking in with a Kansas State or a Missouri shirt on.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, when they came in, I would say, hey, thanks for coming. I can tell you anything about the house you want to, and I can even tell you why you should have gone to Kansas instead of Kansas State. Now, I would say that 9 out of 10 of the people did what you just did. They would laugh a little bit and we would start talking, but it's a complete game changer to what they expected when they came through the door.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. 1 out of 10 would get really upset and we probably weren't going to get along together anyway.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. So think about your conversation starters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't have to be, hey, my name is Chris Lindquist. You're welcome to walk around the house and I really want to be your realtor. Again, they did not wake up that morning going, honey, let's go share our contact information with complete strangers.
Yep.
Be a person.
Mm-hmm.
Start a real, think like the people walking through the door instead of like the person looking for a commission check.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then don't be afraid, especially in these times of a lot of people come, to bring somebody like an ally. Mm-hmm. If your spouse is an agent, bring your spouse. If your partner is an agent, bring your partner. Bring a home inspector. Home inspectors are always looking to buddy up with realtors. Mm-hmm. My favorite home inspector to this day was a guy who came to one of my open houses, and the home inspector brought a paper bag, and inside the paper bag was a water, a cookie, and a mint. He was a brand new home inspector. I was a brand new agent. We've been doing business for 18 years here in Kansas City.
Awesome. I love that.
Okay, and so. You can buddy up with those guys. Your lender, mm-hmm. Maybe a home designer. Mm-hmm. If you're in one of those tear down neighborhoods, you know what I'm talking about, where like they're tearing down this home and building these mansions and all these other kinds of things. Maybe you bring a builder or an architect.
Mm. I like that. Yeah.
Be creative with this.
That's good.
Okay, and then some of you might use a sign-in sheet. Clark? What are some ways to do open houses without using a sign-in sheet?
Yeah, so my go-to was a survey with a clipboard. That I like that, especially with some busier open houses. Having one log. Again, there's no right or wrong way. Actually, my mentor, my sponsor, Keller Williams, who really encouraged me to do open house, do well. He always ran a log, and majority of his business was from open houses. And yet for me, I like to be able to hand them a survey, and of course scripted, but then they could take it with them, right? And jot some notes down, because a part of my script was say, we'd love absolutely to have some feedback for the sellers. And so that eliminated a line in that log from that sign-in sheet, because oftentimes if there's a line, they just wouldn't do it and they'd skirt out the back or somewhere, right? So I always engage with survey. Now I will say we're seeing a lot more opportunity digitally, especially in a non-contact environment. QR codes are huge right now. If you have a QR code that is going to a website to sign in, whether it's for safety or feedback, that's I mean, yeah, we've been seeing that as a good replacement for the past couple of years.
Yeah, again, at the beginning of this, we talked about checking your mindset. And I have a mindset just like you have a mindset. And my mindset is the sign-in sheets scare people. Mm-hmm. It puts them on the defensive. That's my mindset. Is it right or is it wrong? Whatever. Mm-hmm. But how I get around that in my mind is I get conversational tones going, mm-hmm. and then I either share the KW app. Now I got their phone number and I can type in their name. I promise them to get back on a piece of information they asked. Now I've got their phone number and I've got their name. You know, I say, hey, could I send you comps for this area so that you can really look it over, and or any other areas you're looking for, I've got that in there.
Yeah.
Okay. So just figuring out the conversations that you can have. Like, I love your QR code idea, because those are becoming more and more ubiquitous, and people know how to use them. And now on iPhones, I don't know anything about Android, but on iPhones, it actually recognizes the QR. So you don't have to get like a QR app that drove me crazy.
So easy now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so easy. So be creative. Remember, you're looking to build a relationship, not get a commission in the next 35 minutes.
Yeah. It's good. Love that.
You might be able to sell a car in an hour. You're very seldom are you going to sell a house in an hour.
Right.
It's too big a deal. So what are your thoughts on this? Write them down in the comments section.
Yeah.
Email them to Clark. He loves taking phone calls at 2:00 in the morning about this.
Not a chance. Nope. Comment section.
All right. All right. Well, let's pick a time and a theme. Would that be all right?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. The time you choose for an open house is important. And when you know your market well and you've connected with it, picking the right time to host the open house should be simple. Open houses have been known to work in any market at all dates and times. So know the market you're in order to drive the most traffic through the open house. If you're going to do this, make it as profitable as possible. Okay. Picking the time for your open house goes hand in hand with picking a theme. If you're having an open house on a Sunday afternoon during football season, know the game scores or have the game on TV. I always had the game on TV.
Yeah.
Always had the game on TV. As soccer became more and more available on TV, before I stopped doing open houses, I would put soccer games on, especially on NFL Sundays. You think that doesn't start a conversation? Like, you don't have the game on? I do have the game on. Again, what sets you apart from everybody else they've met that day, week, month, year? Yeah. Anyway. All right. The great thing when you read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, by the way, I use that. I was future pacing you. You've read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The great thing about that is people think that was Gary sitting around, being inspired by the real estate gods to write this book. If you go back and actually pay attention to it, it was him interviewing some of the most successful agents ever. In fact, one of the people in that book is Russell Shaw. And when I heard Russell Shaw back in 2007 was going to be speaking at a conference for investors down in Phoenix, Arizona, do you know what I did? I bought a plane ticket that I couldn't afford. It went on my Chase card, and I flew down there. And at 1:00 in the morning, I bought Russell Shaw beers. And I said, Russell, how did you become the #1 listing agent in the Western United States for 10 years in a row?
Love that.
You know what he told me, Clark?
What's that?
The first thing I had to do was become a crappy listing agent. And then I got a little bit better along the way.
Yeah.
And the same is true of open houses, right? Play with the times, play with how you're connecting people, learn from the Russell Shaws. And if you're like, wow, I'd like to learn from Russell Shaw too. Well, then read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, because we're learning that. Okay. So what open house themes have succeeded for some of the agents in your office? The agents that you know, the agents that are like you. Like, there are agents in my office that are highly successful, and I love hanging out with them, but I'm never going to do business the way they do business, and they're not going to do it the way I do business, because we're just two completely different kinds of people.
Yep.
What's wrong with that?
Absolutely nothing. Yep.
Absolutely nothing. Okay. I know a lot of people like to do Saturday open houses. Okay. I think that's a great idea if you're in the #1 or #2 school district of your area, and you're selling a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath home with a 2-car garage and a fence just steps away from a park. What do you think is going on a Saturday afternoon from 1 to 4?
Might be doing an open house. You might be alone.
Yeah, you might be alone because all of those families that would be looking for that home are at their kid's soccer game, football game,
Yeah.
baseball game, track meet, cheerleading event, dance competition.
Yeah.
Yeah. So be smart about what neighborhoods you're in and that kind of thing. Have you ever teamed up with other agents to do an open house in a whole neighborhood? Some of you might be going, what is he talking about? How would that even be possible in today's market? Well, listen, today's market will change. I've been through 3 recessions as a real estate agent. From 2012 on, we haven't had a recession. And we have a lot of agents that don't have the skills to adjust, yet they can still learn them.
Mm.
And so one of the things you might just put in your back pocket is when open houses become more and more popular, get together with other agents, including your competition, because they're not really your competition. That's a whole nother subject for a whole nother day.
Mm-hmm.
And have 5 open houses in a neighborhood. Create a gravy train.
Love that. Yeah.
Why not, right?
I like that.
Okay. But there's a lot of questions we could ask around here. Like, what would be the advantage of having an open house at a non-traditional time? Think about that. Is there a situation where it would be called for? Here's one, and it may not be Mo Anderson approved. Sorry, Mo. Maybe you want to have a happy hour at an executive house.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's like a gated neighborhood.
Yeah.
And you work out with the association and everything that from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, there'll be an open house and you're having happy hours at an executive house.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris, that's a good thought. I mean, I've seen, wine and cheese open houses. I've seen those in luxury listings, and it also just something came to my mind. A lot of folks are working from home now with more flexible work schedules than ever. The weekends might be fuller than they ever had before. Maybe an opportunity is 5 p.m., 6 p.m. on a weekend. I also think about different markets. There's different themes or times that these houses are held open. So we were in Destin last year. We've revisited Destin, and as we're looking to invest there, we started going to open houses, and that was kind of always fun to see how the agents doing their own open houses down there. But they were very unique times. I mean, it was wildly different than what we typically do here in the Midwest. Sunday from 1 to 3, Sunday from 2 to 4. Right?
Yeah.
It was in the afternoons from about 3, but a bit longer time periods too. It'd be like in the afternoons from 3 to 6 or 3 to 7, which I thought was really strange. And yet people being on vacation more leisurely, that was kind of the sweet spot that they figured out for people to actually attend the open houses. So markets, that's kind of getting at this, what works for your market and what would make it easy for those people that you want to bring in.
And don't forget, be different. Be you, be different. If you're like everybody else, why should I choose you?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
As my career evolved, Clark, I started working more and more with investors. You know why I worked more and more with investors?
What's that?
Because I basically worked from 8 o'clock in the morning on Monday to 5 o'clock on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just tell people I don't do evenings and I don't do weekends.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're buying an investment property, you probably got $40 or $50 or $100,000 to invest in the property to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably able to take 2 hours off work to come look at a property.
Yeah, true.
I also drove a Mini Cooper. People would say, "You're an agent, you drove a Mini Cooper. How do people get in the car with you?" They don't. I didn't want them in the car with me.
Yeah.
In the early days I did, but it was different. For years after I sold that red and white Mini Cooper, people would say, "Hey, I saw you out the other day."
Not me.
It wasn't me, but I had built that brand.
That's awesome. I love it.
So it was really fun. So let's talk about the science of real estate. Would that be okay to transition over to that?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
We've been talking a lot about the personality of real estate, and this is still going to help you as far as doing that. But if you've been practicing connecting with and knowing the market, and then gathering the neighborhood stats for your open house will be fast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it will be fast. Listen, There's a lot of local information that is available to you quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love it when people will sit around and argue about this or that. And, I don't know if this is true. If only we had a computer in our pocket that had all of the world's information available to us in less than 10 seconds.
It's right there.
Okay. So your school district information is there. You can go to your Chamber of Commerce and find out everything you need to know about employment, the demographics of race, religion, income, all of those things. By the way, fair housing, be careful there. I never answer those questions. I say, if you want to know that stuff, it's on your Chamber of Commerce side. Yeah. I'm here to sell you a house. That's out of my purview. What are the recreation opportunities here? Especially, it seems the mood of the country right now, post-pandemic, is more a balance of life. Would you agree with that, Clark? Are you seeing that in your area?
Yes, absolutely.
I coach team leaders from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean and everywhere in between. And more we're seeing agents want to live a more balanced life. Why not the people you're working with? Okay. So what are the recreation fields around you? Where are the soccer fields, the baseball fields, where do the high schools play their football games? How long does it take to commute to and from all parts of the city? Do you know that? You may not know everything, but you should know where the major work centers are and how long that would take to get there. Okay. What are some other things that people who are coming to open houses might want to know about the neighborhood? Yeah. Write those down. Think those through. Is there something I didn't mention that would be important to you? Again.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Like if you're a young family, what might be an additional question you would have, Clark?
Library.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you're buying your last house because you're older, what might be a very important question to you?
Yep. Possibly emergency services nearby.
Okay. So you're a young guy, but whether you need emergency services or not, I can tell you as a 57-year-old, I'm starting to think, where are the doctors located? It's because you go more regularly the older you get, generally.
Yeah.
It's not a blanket statement. It's a general.
Yeah.
Okay. Just more regular checkups. So how close are you to medical services? For some of you on the East Coast, you're like, what is he talking about? But Clark can tell you here in St. Louis and Kansas City, you go out into some of the cities just 50 or 60 minutes away, and they have to come all the way in for medical services. So maybe that's a consideration.
Yep.
Okay.
And Chris, I would just add here that, you had mentioned the app. Oftentimes, if we're doing multiple open houses, we might find ourselves stretched to find this information, and lean on the leverage that you have. You've got an app that does have neighborhood stats, and you can even go into that app, and it shows Yelp reviews below. So one thing I would encourage you, that if you get those questions, like just like I did, right? Where's the local board game shop? Just use that, right? Use the app. Say, hey, here's my app, and it shows not only any location, it shows you the distance in any location that you want to put in the app, but also here's some Yelp reviews. And yet I know that specifically the questions you have, let me get that for you. But in the meantime, there's a lot of information on the neighborhood specifically, recent solds, average price per square foot, all that's in the app. And you can lean on at least those, I should say, broad strokes, metrics that most folks would get without having to get too much into the details. So lean on that.
And guys, this may seem overwhelming at first. If you become an expert in a neighborhood, how long does this take each week for prep?
Yeah.
38 seconds?
Yeah. You get at it real fast.
5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Yeah.
If you're the agent that will go anywhere, anytime, anywhere, like I was at the beginning, then it's exhausting and a lot of research and a lot of work if you're actually doing your customers right. Okay. And yet you'll build an area of expertise as time goes on, should you choose to do so. All right. Let's talk a little bit about being safe and making sure that we're not only honoring the safety of the open house we're holding and the possessions and the property of the person we're holding the open house, but also of the neighborhood and what I like to think, most importantly, me. Making sure that I'm going home to my family or my loved ones at the end of the day. So agent safety should be a top priority for hosting open houses because there is a risk involved in holding open houses. Clark, who gets assaulted at open houses more, men or women?
We've seen in the news, yeah, women.
Actually, I think people would be shocked that a lot of times it's men.
Really? I just think about the news, right? I mean, that's oftentimes what we see in the news, those stories. So,
there's a lot of evidence that shows the men don't report it nearly as often.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm 100% right on that or 100% wrong, but I have read articles that have gone to that. So this is not a guys check out of the conversation. If I could share a little bit of a story here, I was a private investigator for 9 years before I became a photographer because I was taking pictures of people doing things they shouldn't be doing. I got really good, and then people started buying my sports pictures, and then that's how I ended up in real estate.
Learning so much about you, Chris. This is awesome.
Oh, it's fun, man. I mean, I've had a great life. I mean, I didn't make any money till I was like in my mid to late 40s, but I had a great life. So, but as an investigator, you learn how to take care of yourself. So I never gave this any consideration. Never gave it any consideration. And I've seen too many horror stories to continue to ignore it.
Yeah.
Especially when I was a team leader. If you can use a buddy system, not only can you get more conversations started, get better information, you could just feel safer. My leasing agent for my property management company, if she's out doing a personal showing, she has an app on her phone that our local multiple listing service makes available. And yours might as well. If not, you can just buy one for $40-$50 on the thing. And you can actually go into a house with somebody and hold your finger on that button, just holding your phone like this. And if you take your finger off that button without doing a swipe or whatever, for more than 10 seconds, then an alert goes out.
Love that. Love that. Love that.
So there's other technologies that you can use to protect yourself. What is wrong with if you're doing a showing? First of all, don't be a pop-up realtor. Drives me nuts. Whoa, yeah, I'll meet you out there. You have no idea who that is. Okay. My leasing agent is instructed on every time she does meet somebody out at a house, the first thing she does, she gets out of her car and she says, hey, due to safety regulations with my company, and she walks to the back of the car and she takes a picture of the license plate, the rear of the car, and then she sends it to the office. She's had people get in the car and drive off. They've never felt so violated. Let me ask you a question. If you're that violated over that, what were your intentions anyway?
Yeah, no kidding.
I get into all these side stories. Sorry. It's just,
well, it's real. It's real.
So, park on the street, but when you're in the house, don't ever, 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 ever let the clients get between you and an exit. So when you get to an open house, maybe you open the front door, unlock the back door, unlock the basement door if it's got one. So that those doors are unlocked. Okay. And then please make sure you lock them before you go, all that kind of fun stuff. So check all that stuff out. Make sure the house is safe. Also make sure the house is safe before you leave. Especially with these crazy open houses I've seen going on, or crazy showings like you've got. How do we know somebody didn't stow away in the house?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So you might check that out. Be familiar with your local health and safety guidelines because it's really different in the Northeast versus the South. Okay. And so things like that. Learn your conversation starters with folks and trust your spidey senses. Okay, you all have spidey senses. They're there for a reason. There's nothing wrong with cutting a conversation short. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. And by the way, a great best practice for safety for your clients is to tell them if it's valuable, get it out.
Yeah.
Put it somewhere where nobody can find it, including you half the time.
Yeah.
I don't want to be hearing about you left this $15,000 necklace on your bathroom vanity and now it's missing.
Right.
And that's a real conversation I'll have, by the way. Because they don't want it stolen and you don't want to be responsible for it.
Yeah. Sure.
All right. Any ahas that you folks have? Again, text Clark at 2:00 in the morning. He loves that. You can set a little reminder. No, I'm just kidding. But write those down in the thing. Let us know what your ahas are.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, let's again take a quick break here. We'll take 3 minutes for some ahas. Write them down. Share them with others. Didn't share this on the last time. I'll remind you on the last aha, but agents helping agents is what ahas can stand for, right? So share it with somebody else along, whether you're in the room or if you're watching this with somebody else. Share it with them, right? And we'll come back in 3. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you got some good ahas to share with one another. We are moving along in the agenda here. And so now we're going to begin talking about preparing, prospecting, and pursuing, getting in action here. Let's go, Chris. Ready to go.
All right. Well, Gary likes to say the difference between big and really big is how you manage your time and focus.
Mm-hmm.
How might that apply to open houses? Okay. So we're gonna prepare and prospect and pursue here in our next conversations. So let's start with prepare. That sound good to you, Clark?
Yeah.
All right.
Prep.
All right. So you've got a blank page in your participant guide. Remember, the goal for your open house is to get appointments with active buyers and sellers. To be at your best and achieve what you've set out for yourself takes preparation. Schedule preparation time during the week before your open house so that you can ensure that you capture leads and set appointments. Practice. You'll spend more time preparing for the open house than you will actually be hosting the event. Okay. Prepare your mindset beforehand. Getting in a fight with your teenagers beforehand probably isn't helpful. Okay. Talk to them after the open house. Set high and achievable goals, remove limiting beliefs, focus on success, and believe in yourself. Practice conversations for greeting people and answering questions before you get there. Okay.
Yeah. Chris, that was the best practice for me. I would, as driving to the open house, the scripts, right? I'd be practicing, I'd be saying on the drive. Now, it's really handy.
So I would, before listing appointments at open houses, I would listen to "Lose Yourself" by Eminem.
Love it.
You got one shot. Would you take it? I mean, I would get like let's go, man.
That is so awesome.
So that's today. I would listen to Carrie Underwood's "I'm a Champion." You know, whatever it is for you. Okay. All right. How many leads do you intend to capture? How many appointments would you like to get from your next open house? Okay. You're going to build your open house plan at the end of this. Yeah. So take some time and think about that. All right. So we got a week before the open house preparation, right? We got a week to do the open house preparation. So let's kind of break this down. Again, this may be a great roadmap for you, or you may alter it a little bit. Yeah. But it's a pretty dependable roadmap. Yeah. All right. So you've done a little hard work. You've picked the house. You know the next few steps will maximize the potential client traffic at your house. A lot of this will involve posting online in the days leading up to the open house. And 93% of buyers use a website to find a house. So go where the people are. Post online about your house. Where are some places you might post, Clark?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Facebook, LinkedIn even is, a possibility there. Instagram, right? I think those being the key ones. Definitely, absolutely posting those their community groups, right? Specifically, we're diving in details on Facebook, community groups, certain whether townships, municipalities, bring that into focus for that. Yeah, absolutely, good spot.
Some MLSs. Yeah, that's you may have said that and I missed it. I apologize, but some MLSs are a great place too. So anyway, you can call around the open house as well and personally invite neighbors, tell them what you got going on. Make sure you follow federal guidelines and don't end up in trouble with the TCPA and the do not call list. Okay. So, but I'm encouraging you to reach out to 100 people. 20 a day, 25 a day, 33.3 people a day, get it over in 3 days. So you can get a lot of good information from your neighbors. Door knock and ask them, what do you love about this neighborhood?
Yes.
That's a great question. Why did you buy in this neighborhood? Okay. Yeah.
Chris, I love that. Yeah. So if door knocking is a big piece of that, that was one of my scripts as well. It's like, hey, and I always say, hey, I've looked at some real estate stats around here, and yet trying to understand the vibe or the heart of this neighborhood, right? What led you to this neighborhood? The cool thing is you might realize that somebody's like, oh, can't stand this place, can't wait to get out. Awesome, let's have a conversation about that, right? Or you actually got some good feedback and something to share at the open house. Like, I actually got to know a lot of the neighbors here, and here's what they say about it. It's powerful. That's different. That's different.
You made a great point. You might find out some things about the neighborhood you didn't know because you're not really an expert, although you're trying to be an expert. Like the proposed sewage plant that they're going to build a half mile down the road to the south. That'll be sweet in the summertime. You can learn those kinds of things. Listen, you've got that participant guide, and you've got that little checklist of preparing for an open house. Look through those. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you've got questions, write them down in your, the comment section. Check with your productivity coach or Ignite instructor in your local market center. Get the answers to your questions.
Yeah, and I would say that that is a pretty exhaustive list on that participant guide, right? So maybe set yourself a goal. You know, maybe which 10 out of the multitude that are there would I be willing to commit to? What do I have energy as I'm looking through those? I'd be excited to do. Right.
Yeah.
Just thought.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. You can't do anything or you can't do everything.
Mhm.
You just simply can't. And most of us aren't walking around with, gee, I generally find myself with an extra 30 hours at the end of every week. So you got to be purposeful.
Yeah.
All right. What are some of the things clients like to know? We're gonna talk about the community and neighborhood information, relocation information, first-time buyer specifics, mortgage information. People come to open house they intend to know the community and neighborhood information. Remember, they're buying a lifestyle.
Mhm.
They're buying a lifestyle. Be a community service real estate expert by knowing your market. Become familiar with the neighborhood. Listen, if you don't know the sales price of that house, that's not one of those situations where I don't know, I'll get back to you. That's probably not a good look. Okay. If they have something really bizarre, that would be okay. But you should know the name of the park down the street and the popular restaurants in the area. You should know a little bit about the history. If you even know the builder or the developer, that's fantastic. You've got KW apps that you can use to maximize your knowledge and to use as a lead generation and capture tool, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What other things in the neighborhood might be useful to know before hosting your open house?
Yeah.
What are some things that would be important to you?
Yeah.
People often choose to move to growing areas. All right. This is where neighborhood information will be very, very important. Yeah. Okay. What's something convenient about the neighborhood you live in that you'd like in the next neighborhood you move to?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're watching this in a class, let's shut this down for a minute and talk about this. Mm-hmm. If you're not watching in a class, write down some things in your notebook or write down in the comments section. I mean, we'd love your ideas on that. Is that fair to say, Clark?
Yeah, Chris, that's good. Yeah. And while y'all are having that discussion, I'm thinking about where we presently live. We absolutely love the location, right? I mean, we're 2 minutes from the freeway. You can get us anywhere in our county, St. Louis County. And, as we think about we're outgrowing this home now or would like a little bit more acreage, that we've kind of gotten spoiled on this location. So that's one of the things we're considering, right? We don't have to add an additional 15 or 20 minutes to the commute every day. Right. So yeah, how close is the freeways as somebody comes into your open house? And we've talked about this in previous sessions. You'll be able to learn all this knowledge about the neighborhood, the market stats, and yet your key opportunity in engaging in those conversations with the open house guest is getting curious about what's important to them. Right. So know that you can, while we're talking about this, right, that there's so much that you can prepare for, and yet don't assume that what information you have to share is what you should share. Right. Because you got to be curious in that. That's the fun part.
Two things you always have to be cautious of as a real estate agent is vomiting information and commission breath. Yeah. If you can stay away from those, just because you know something doesn't mean you have to tell somebody. Yeah. Right. Knowing financial and mortgage information is also something visitors might ask about. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're buying a $400,000 house, knowing whether you can afford it might be a good thing. Okay. Yeah. We've got a fantastic tool in most of America. I don't know what states are still excluded for Keller Mortgage. Okay. You can use Keller Mortgage and the tools associated with it to help you secure clients from these open houses.
Absolutely.
They can speak intelligently about it. Is it still portal.kellermortgage.com, Clark?
Yep, it is. As a Keller Williams agent, you have your own portal. The neat thing is with your app, there's a button in there that says learn more about Keller Mortgage. We'll take directly to your portal, and it's a seamless process where you get notified. Probably, I mean, I would say overly notified. Like I just had somebody begin the application process 2 days ago, and I'm getting text and emails every day say, hey, they haven't taken this step yet. Just a little prompt. I'm blown away. It's phenomenal. I've absolutely loved it.
This house, financed by Keller Mortgage.
Love it. Yeah.
Okay. So it's just one of those things. Now, should they be careful about disclosing this kind of stuff, Clark?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you've got RESPA laws. You just want to do things the right way. So make sure you're doing this.
Yeah, we mentioned that before, Chris. There's a document, right, you want to be aware of that your market center has access to, that you need to present to any buyer or seller. Once you talk about Keller Mortgage, you present that to them. So your market center has access to that. It's also on kwconnect.com. So make sure you have that because you definitely want to be in alignment with RESPA. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, there's no sense in making a commission and then paying 10 times that in fines.
Nope.
Listen, I'm not trying to scare you. Just do things right. Do what you're being trained to do.
Yeah.
That no one commission is worth your reputation.
Right.
Just plain and simple. So brush up on the home buying process. Open houses are a great place for first-time buyers, and they will likely have a lot of questions. I mean, a lot of questions. Get your visitors to download and use the KW app to leverage your leads. The more familiar you are with first-time buyer specifics, the more questions you'll be able to answer at open houses. You don't have to know everything there is to know about mortgage information. Just know enough to get them down the road, like general interest rates. You'll learn as you go, but don't answer questions you don't know the answers to.
That's right.
Okay. Remember when we talked about bringing a lender with you?
Mm-hmm.
How about if you just said, hey, meet Steve?
Yeah.
That would be a great way to go, right? Okay.
It's really funny. Actually, Steve was my main lender that came with me on my do my open houses. We did multitude together. That's so great.
So it's such an uncommon name in America. No. Yeah. So, but yeah, you could definitely do that. And believe me, you want to do a very inexpensive open house. A lot of lenders will print up the flyers for you.
Yep.
They'll bring the cookies. They'll bring the water. Just a tip.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that. Yep.
So let's talk about prospecting. Let's talk about, building trust and rapport and providing value and capture information and things like that. Again, you can take notes on this in your participant guide. If you've read the MREA, then you've heard leads, listings, and leverage over and over and over again. If you haven't read the MREA, go read the MREA 137 times, and I'm not exaggerating. Okay. Open houses are all about leads. An open house is a great prospecting tool that requires mostly just your time as an investment.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the ways you can use open houses to prospect for leads. So we can build trust and rapport through greeting everyone that comes to the door. We can engage in a conversation, and we can be positive.
Yes. Yes.
The third one there is funny to me. If you're not positive, this may not be the business for you.
Yeah.
You need to. And by the way, if you're not positive about the house you're at, don't hold it open.
Yep.
An important part of an open house is to build trust and rapport with the foot traffic that visits the house. Ways you can do this are greet everyone that comes to the door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Even in my notes here, it says even the kids and the dog. I'm drawing a line at a dog. I'm just going to say I haven't got permission from the owners to let a dog because I don't know what their allergy situation may be.
Sure. Yeah. Or what could happen? Any mistakes? Accidents.
It's just a different, different thing. Now the kids, absolutely. What brought you here today is a great question to ask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you looking for a home in this neighborhood, this price range? Have you been looking at other houses?
Yeah.
Would you like to know more about this market or neighborhood? What do you like about this house that I may share with others?
Yeah.
These are all the Ignite questions. I'm going to give you the broker in me question. Are you currently working with another agent?
Yes. Find that out.
Find that out for 2 reasons. What are the 2 reasons, Clark?
Well, yeah. One, I mean, as realtors, we want to make sure that we respect one another as agents, and by doing that, we stay out of real estate jail. They have an agency agreement, right? So we need to honor that.
Yeah, there's a code of ethics, and the other thing is so you're not wasting your time.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. So I don't like Clark, if you sent somebody that came to my open house, and I don't even care if you were with XYZ brokerage, I'm going to take good care of you.
Absolutely.
First thing I'm going to say is don't say anything to me that I can use against you in negotiations if you already have an agent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I'm just going to say, you can ask me any other questions that you want to. And by the way, I'll let such and such know I talked with you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the team leader in me now. I'm no longer a team leader. Could be a recruiting opportunity.
Sure is. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I always use that script of, well, yeah, I love find out who their agent is. They might say, oh yeah, I have an agent, right? It's like, oh, that's awesome. We're tight community. Who you working with, right? And so I can thank them that they brought you the open house.
And some of you might be going, well, I'm not going to call the other agents. That seems like a waste of my time. Huh. Do you know how many agents that I've heard over the last couple of years go, well, it's just not fair. I've written 12 offers for my buyers and my offers never get accepted. You know what they're telling me? One of the things they're telling me, there's a lot of things they're telling me, by the way, but one of the things they're telling me is they don't have any relationships with any of these other agents. Mm-hmm. I could go more into that, but that's not the topic for today. So
fair enough.
It's Chris Lindquist at kwmaps@gmail.com if you want to go into that. So, all right. So it's important to meet your clients where they are, not where you would have them. Mm-hmm. If somebody is telling you that we're being transferred to Cleveland in a month, is that an urgency situation for them?
That it is.
Okay. If they tell you that they're thinking about retiring next year, and when that happens, they're going to go ahead and move to Florida, is that an urgency situation?
No,
definitely not. Now they might move that up. Mm-hmm. But the goal of that relationship, Clark, is to get to know them and win their trust.
Yep.
It's not to sell them a house or to sell their house.
Yeah. No. Now you can't move somebody's motivation if they're at a 5 to a 9 or a 10, right?
Yeah.
No salesman is that good.
You're not selling a car.
Yeah.
So I could sit with an extra car in but most people can't carry 2 mortgages for an extended period of time, right, or be homeless. All right. So think about what we've just talked about there. Talk amongst yourselves. Put your comments in the comment section. Now let's talk about providing value. Know your team stats, know your market stats, understand your personality types. Oh, I love that subject. And have something to offer your visitors. Mm-hmm. Okay. During an open house, it's important to demonstrate and provide value. You can do this in several ways, and the most obvious is to take and know your numbers. Mm-hmm. When you get to the day of the open house, make sure you know the stats of that of your team and or your market center. Like, have a history of success that you can tell. Okay. Know your market stats. How many days the house has been on the market? Careful with agency. Just check with your broker on that. Price, number of houses sold in the neighborhood, and for what price. Mm-hmm. Okay. Understand the personality types and conversation styles of different people. I love the Keller personality assessment, the KPA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you haven't taken the KPA, turn to the person in the room with you, or go to your TL or your PC or whoever it is and say, why haven't I taken the KPA? And get in that process. It's fantastic. Mm-hmm. But, and I do use the word but, we're not going to get people to come into our open houses and then take a 45-minute analysis test, or whatever's not a test, and then sit down and try to learn them. Maybe you need to learn the DISC profile, mm-hmm. the DISC profile. Well, Chris, how do I learn that? You could YouTube it. Mm-hmm. You could do some reading online, but learn that, because that's going to help you to talk to them in a way that they understand. Okay. Did they engage with you when you greeted them? Mm. Did you mirror and match their energy and their interest levels? Mm. That's a big deal.
Yeah, Chris, I like that, because it might be hard to pick up on what their personality type is, right? We have, it's just a quick introduction, right? I mean, it's a quick judgment. A go-to is mirror and match their conversation level, their intensity of their voice, their demeanor, their body language. It's an easy way to build rapport. right? Not
Yeah,
have to.
and you can tell a lot about a person by when you keep trying to engage. But if they keep shutting you down, is that because they don't like you, don't trust you, or is it maybe because they're a high D and they just don't need any extraneous conversation?
Yep.
These are the different kinds of things you're thinking about. If you don't know what a high D is, that's okay. It's okay. You can learn.
Yeah.
I'm talking to you from 20 years. Go study the DISC profile. By the way, it's fun to study the DISC.
It is.
Be careful in your marriage, though. Anyway, just kidding. Okay. So what are some things you offer or you could offer to visitors when they come to your open house? Mm-hmm. Clark, what did you like to offer?
Yeah, I would have a printout. I'd have one printout of all the open houses within a certain radius, right? So call it 5 to 10 miles, depending on the area. And so I would have one PDF, right, that they could review, and I would say, hey, I've actually got this saved. I can go ahead and text it to you or email it to you. That way, another way to capture information. So I'd always say, hey, this, because I printed off that morning, and it would be the most recent list to make sure they didn't, if they had others on their list, if they were canceled, because some did cancel, this was the most recent. So that was one piece that I shared, and definitely the app. That was a big piece as well.
Yeah, you could get all sorts of market reports, and you can use the app and those kinds of things. You could partner with a local business and maybe have some coupons. You could have some cookies, some water. I got to tell you, do you know what my value was?
What's that?
No one would communicate with you at your style more, better, or provide more service than me. Like, I'll know the market better than any other open house you go to that day. I'll ask little questions like, by the way, can I have your phone number? Or is that the best way to communicate with you? Would you rather have an email, a text, or a phone call? You know, I want to relate to them on how they relate.
Yeah. That was
just me. I didn't have a lot of giveaways. But in case you haven't picked up on it yet, right now, I'm not a real like touchy-feely guy. Okay. But that's the customers I attracted and whatnot. So we could do some role plays on this. You should do some role plays on this about how to engage with people.
Yeah.
You know, you can have a lot of fun with this in your market centers right now. If you're watching this on your market center, you could do this with yourself in the mirror. My son is 29. My oldest son is 29 now. He lives about 2 miles that way. If I could get him over here, he would tell you that he used to walk in and he would just, what are you doing, Dad? He was like 7, 8, 9 years old when I first got started. And he go, what are you doing? Because I'm in the mirror going like, oh, really? Tell me more about that. Or, you're from where? Or why did you go to Missouri? I would practice the facial expressions. I know that sounds silly, but that comes from my speech and forensics background in high school. So, Clark, any closing thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I'll just say another tool, leave it to the tech guy. There's an app that I utilize. It's called Think Up, which I'm sure there's other ones out there. It's an affirmations app. So I use it for affirmations. And I think those are important. But you can also create it in a way to have your scripts. So it's all by tagged and categories, and you can go into different modes for here's my open house script list and listen to yours as you record them in your own voice, which was a little cheesy at first, but it's powerful because not only will you hear yourself say the script for the open house, but then you get a little pause to repeat it. And so I swear by it. I use it for daily affirmations and the other scripts that I need in my world. Yeah. So again, it's maybe a little extra 2 cents there yet. And being always on the go, I'll play that wherever I need that reaffirmation or just a reminder to brush it up on a script.
So you touched on something there. Like you talk about this, like this is normal behavior for most people. And yet you said it was a little cheesy at first, which tells me you felt a little weird doing it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hear my own voice. Yeah.
Folks, get comfortable being weird if you want to change your life.
Absolutely. Yep.
So a lot of you got into this business for one of 2 reasons. You either wanted to have more control over your time or you wanted to have more control over your money.
Yep.
And yet if you're not willing to change some things in your life, you're going to stay right where you are.
Yep.
So anyway, that's a whole nother coaching session.
Absolutely.
So All right, let's talk about capturing information and qualifying leads. Clark, why don't you read those 5? I'm tired of talking for a second.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah. So yeah, in this, of course, we mentioned the app, right? So you've got your consumer app, but we also have the command app, right? I wish I had the command app when I was doing open houses, because it's been so much more easier to add contacts by database instead of doing it later. But you want to be able to have the ability to organize and consolidate that lead information, right? So before, during, and after open houses, depending on how busy it is, make sure you're capturing that information and qualifying those leads. So there's several ways you can do that, right? You can have your sign-in sheet, survey, or you might want to do, you can have Command open on a laptop there. You can also create a custom landing page within Command, right? There's a lead capture form. That could be your sign-in sheet if you choose. Offering the KW app as they register, they automatically come into Command, right? Yet the key piece, right? It's not just capturing that information, asking questions to them. You've been introduced to Ford throughout this process of Ignite. So asking the who, the what, where, when, why, getting curious. That's the most fun where this open houses is tapping into your being a PI there, Chris. Right? Like getting to know these people can be really fun. How much can you know? What else should I know? Do I want to know about this? It can be really fun. Yet there's a key piece there. You want to make sure that what you do receive, put it in the database, put it in Command as soon as possible. Because I promise you, 3 days from now, from 3 days from that open house, you're not going to remember. It's not going to be as impactful. So put that in the notes, put that in the activity tracker that you had a meeting with them as an open house. So, and of course here, yes, you're here to get leads, and in time as we follow up, the goal is to get to the table for appointments. All right. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with possibly asking for business in the moment there. Right. And so make sure that you're not missing that opportunity. And as you're setting your goal for the open house, like I'm looking for one appointment today, and then bring that in the conversation. All right. So these 5 things you see here on this slide, of course, and follow along in your participant guides, right? These are going to help you. Right? They're going to help you as the open house pro, as you're developing your professionalism, achieve success when you're hosting these.
Clark, that was a great delivery, man. I mean, and that's just because here's the question: as I'm listening to you, I'm asking myself this. I've spent an hour and a half plus in this class. I've spent 1, 2, 3 hours preparing for this open house. Why would I not go ahead and do it? Get that piece of business either through an appointment or a relationship.
Yeah.
What would stop me from doing that?
Yeah. I'd say the number one thing is it's not in your mind. You're not looking for it. You can possibly resign that's not going to happen. Whether you probably haven't told yourself that, right? You're just not focusing on it.
Yeah. Your previous life probably didn't depend on it.
Yeah.
Now it does.
Yeah.
And it may feel awkward. It may feel, I love what you said, cheesy. It may feel a little bit different, but you're going to get better at it as time goes along.
Absolutely.
So great job, Clark. Let's talk about the third one here: pursue and following up and converting leads at open houses. Let's update your database. Let's follow through with all the attendees. Let's reevaluate our things. So remember, the goal of an open house is to generate the leads and sell houses. That's how you get paid. Make sure you follow up and convert the leads after an open house. If you say you're going to do something, do it. So your time and investment will pay off. Okay. It's time to pursue your leads and reconnect with all your visitors. It's a good practice after an open house to immediately put them in your database. It's not time to go home and start relaxing. Spend that extra time to get them into your database and get those smart plans up and running. Okay. Get them into your neighborhoods search. And then reconnect. That might be that night. It might be the next day, whatever it is, be consistent and be good at it. Okay. Reach out to them and thank them for coming. Ask them if they're enjoying the KW app. Okay. Ask them if they have any further questions. Yeah. Have they reached out to a lender yet? Would you like them to be put in contact with a lender? Yeah. Anything else you would add there, Clark?
Yeah, we'll touch more on follow-up, because right now we are focused on how do we generate leads, right? That's the segment of Ignite we're in, and we will have a segment on follow-up. Yeah, while we're touching on this, one of my favorite pieces, and I always got great feedback on it, was while I was at the open house, I'd record a short video on my phone. Right. So once I got the surveys and those who gave me numbers, after I recorded the phone saying, "Hey, thank you for coming to the open house. Appreciate the feedback that you gave the seller. It is so helpful for them." And of course, just make it ask for anything else that they need. But I would send it to them. I text it to them. Like within the hour of leaving, I would text it to them, just to anchor in, and that as a differentiator of other open houses they might have been at. Right, being positive and just thanking them for coming. That was part of my follow-up process. So it was just a goodie to share there that if this is the only Ignite you happen to be watching, hopefully that's a value.
Okay,
We'll talk more about that on follow-up section.
Thank you. Thank you. So write down your ahas. And if you're in your participant guide, guess what we're going to talk about now?
Yeah.
Okay, just keep going. Now we're going to talk about the planning of an open house. So after you've hosted the open house, it's time to go back to the original goals you set for yourself in your guide earlier. How many appointments did you intend to get? How many did you end up with? How would you consider the open house a success? What changes and improvements would you make for the next open house? Right? I mean, let's stop here for a second and kind of go through this. Like what are some of the things you would be looking for?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, Chris, that's awesome. So yeah, in your also participant guides, these are questions. It's time to now get into action, right? So we'll give you all some time to fill out this sheet. Let's call it 5 minutes, right? This is, if you're stuck with us, right? You're probably engaged and say, yeah, open houses is the way I think I'm going to get business. Page 7.13 on your participant guide. Take time and get into action because there's specific questions here. What date and time is best to hold the next open house? What price range? Begin to think about this. This is a great sheet to kind of recap all the good things you've heard, but personalize it in an action plan for you. So let's take 5 minutes on this, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. There you go. If you went through all those questions purposely, you've got your plan, right? You've got your next steps, right? And if you didn't have time to do that, or you're still a few, maybe a little fuzzy on some of those, take time right after this and ask others how they feel, or your market center leadership. Yet in that, would love to hear anything that stood out for you. Put it in the comments section below of something you're going to commit to. Share it with your peers there in the market center as well. Would love to hear where you're taking action. All right, so we're almost wrapped up. Actually, on a recap here, we walked through a few of these diagrams, right? So on these diagrams here, what all did we actually cover together? Well, we first talked about open house best practice. Or we began with the benefits of the open houses. Why to do an open house, which we understand it's inexpensive. It's a prospecting tool, getting immediate results, being able to qualify leads. There's a high ROI that's there. Then we understood what are some best open house best practices. One, setting a goal. What is your intention on having that open house? Picking the open house, preparing, had a great 5-day plan that you could begin to implement now. And then we went over to more preparation, right? Just before the open house and how we prospect. What are powerful questions we can ask? How do we pursue them, not only in the midst of that open house, but immediate following up, right? So again, there's a checklist in your participant guide. So with that checklist and also your plan, I trust if you leaned into it well, that you're feeling really good, right? Feeling equipped to be able to step in.
And I love that. So after all of this, after today's session, are you ready to start an open house this weekend?
Mm-hmm.
This weekend? Yeah. Okay. Maybe you're going to tell me it's next weekend, which, by the way, is Memorial Day weekend. Then you'll be just like me. No, I'm just kidding. That's in real time here. But
well, I was going to say, Chris, and before I do forget, because I have this one, happy 20 years in real estate, but also, which is phenomenal. It's inspiring, and happy anniversary to you and your wife.
Oh, well, yeah, that's cool. She's a very patient woman. So she was. I walked into my house and she was dancing, and I said, "Who is that girl over there?" To my best friend's future wife. She said, "Well, that's Marie, but she's got a boyfriend." I said, "Well, introduce me." 36 years later, that was a great introduction. So, but listen, all of this is just knowledge and study. Mm-hmm. This isn't like the job you came from. There's no paycheck in 2 weeks. You got to get out there and do an open house, mm-hmm. create a relationship, and serve somebody to get that commission check.
That's right. And
so let's start on that this week or maybe next week. Yeah, absolutely. Is there any good reason to put this off, Clark?
No, I trust if they're at this point, they realize there's an opportunity in open houses. Yeah. If there still is any limiting beliefs, go back and speak truth into those. What's the reality to that myth understanding of open houses?
Well, the most popular one I hear is there's just no inventory to hold open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Again, and I told you at the beginning of this, that'll work. If you really stick to that, it'll work.
That's right.
And yet you can figure out a way around that, I promise you. So go execute your plan and jump into your first open house. The best way to learn is to experience it in real life.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Well, Chris, we're all wrapped up. And so, but yeah, before we say goodbye, we are going to transition right after this. If you're in the market center, right, with your peers, we get to get an activity through the daily success system. Those 10 conversations, adding 10 to the database, 10 handwritten notes, and the social media 10-5-1 plan. Right. So stick around if you have a little break or anything, get some lunch, but then come back, go in the role play and get into action there. Right. That's the heart and what really truly ignites your opportunity here in the business. Yet, Chris, this is phenomenal. I was honored to be here with you. Learned a lot. Yeah, I knew you said open houses were your thing, and yet now it provides more perspective. So thank you for bringing your experience and expertise to us today.
It's fun. Guys, enjoy this business. You started a business for pennies that could make you hundreds and hundreds and perhaps millions of dollars. Too many of people have done it to say that you can't. What do you want to get out of this business? That's the question.
We'll see y'all next time.